Hey, it's MK, and I am here with a Messy Monday layout for you guys today. I am also playing along with Christy's Beautiful Life 30 Days of Sketches, and today's sketch is by Johanna Goulding, and I'm also using my counterfeit kit that I put together for the month of June. So here are a couple of the embellishments that I picked out. I've got this Nature Steady mushrooms, and foliage, and then I also added a little bit more of the other set of the Nature Steady stuff. I have this little piece of wood that says buy the ticket, take the ride, and then adventure ahead, but I don't think I end up using the little wood veneer on this layout. I've got two pictures of some trains that I saw while I was in Washington. I thought it was pretty cool. And then I've got some scraps of white cardstock to practice my painting. And the paint I'm going to be using is this random blue I got in a kit. I have Distress Spray Stain in Black Soot, and then this metallic paint by Deco Art in Rich Espresso. I also think I'm going to bring in some of these stickers, but then I don't think I end up bringing in the stickers. I don't remember, you guys. And then I've got a couple scraps for my photos. I'm going to use the vellum letter or wordy bits, and then the black on white or white on black polka dots for my double matte. And then this gray cardstock. So I used about 3 pieces of this gray cardstock before I ended up getting it right. The first thing I tried was that little piece of paper over on the right. I went ahead and I cut out little gaps in the paper, and I was going to use it as a template and then just scrape my ink down the page. And I was going to use my little flower tray over there as my paint palette, but then I realized all the divots and stuff might make the paint uneven, so I ended up just using my messy mat, or my glass mat I should say, and it didn't work. The paint only stayed on for maybe about 2 or 3 inches down my page, and then it just faded out, and I was unable to complete the process going all the way down the page without it looking very choppy. So then this is my second attempt at using different sized flat brushes. So I have, I think, a 2, a 4, a 6, and an 8 in flat brushes. And so I'm just painting them down. And I really like how this gold looks. So I'm continuing going down. I'm trying to make it as random as possible. I'm trying to stay as straight as possible, but that's not happening. And I like the, I think Janet would call this organic look, where it's not absolutely perfect. Well, here's where it starts to go a little iffy. I put on my first blue. For one, it takes a lot of paint to go and into a straight dark line. I didn't really like it. So then I'm trying it again with a little bit lighter paint, and not so much paint to where I am taking away from the gold, because I want it to look like it's plaid, right? And in order to do that, you kind of need your pieces to show different in the cross sections. Does that make sense? I think so. So here's me trying the 4th brush. So I've got all 4 brush styles. I get to my second one and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to finish this. I don't like it. I don't know why I keep painting it. So there we go. Now here I'm going to go ahead and do a wash. It's more of a dry brush technique, but you water down your paint and you put it on your paintbrush, and then you just wash and dry, or brush really fast across the page, so you get all those streaks and strips, and it's not perfect. And I tried my blue first instead of my gold, because I'm hoping that the gold will be transparent enough to where it shows the difference for the with the blue in the background. And it does. It ends up working exactly the way I want it to. It does still look a little plain, like, oh, it needs something. I grabbed a liner brush because I was going to paint black lines, and then I remembered that I couldn't paint a straight line to save my life. So I am trying to think, okay, how am I going to add, thin black strips? And I just grabbed a journal pen. This journal pen did start running out of ink midway through, so I am using another scrap of white cardstock, so that way I could keep my ink flowing because it just kept getting gummed up with paint. And then once I did that, I realized it's still too crisp and clean. The cardstock is just crisp and clean. So I'm going to take my Distress ink and go ahead and blend it in, make it a little bit more dirty, give it that fabric feel, I guess. And then here's where it all kind of goes wonky. I splatter it. And I have to say, splattering on top of acrylic paint took 2 days to dry. It was not my favorite part of this process. Had I known that, I would have done the splattering last. I honestly would have. I didn't know that. And I actually, once I finished matting my photos with the double matte, which I love, and because of the white little border, it actually looks triple matted. So here's where I realized, look, it's not drying anytime soon. So I'm going to go ahead. I've smeared it in some spots already. I mean, what a disaster. I have black all over my hands. It was just not fun. So I decided that I picked out all the pieces from the laser cut pieces. I added in some metal leaves, some black little pieces from the laser cut close to my heart pieces. I don't know if I showed those to you guys or not. And then I did not. Because I did not end up, I found enough words in the laser cut pieces that I did not need to bring in any of the close to my heart stickers. So I'm creating all my clusters. I'm pre-creating my clusters, which may or may not work in my favor. It'll definitely tell me where these pieces are going to go on my layout, depending on the size, the shape, the curve, how they're pointing, all that good stuff. So that is definitely going to be a factor in where these pieces are going to go. I just don't know. I just start creating and picking out what I'm going to do. I like taking these little faux bows and layering them on top of each other so they look like they're double bowed up. So I did that really quickly. Just playing around with all the little pieces. I do know that in Johanna's sketch, she has the title in the upper right-hand corner. And so this right here, this Wander, Wonder, and Repeat is going to be my title. And so at first I thought about taking that wander word off. It's not my favorite word, you guys. And I don't know why. It's just not. So I thought about cutting it off, but then I figured I needed a base for this really big butterfly, and I'm going to have it flying behind the little title piece. So I went ahead and I kept it on there, and we're going to see if that's going to go and fit in the upper left-hand corner. So, and then of course I am adding a little bit of these metallic leaves throughout all of the little clusters. I think I only picked out 4. I only wanted to do 3 clusters, but I think I end up doing 4. So here's where I had a lot of people ask me, how do I flatten my flare? And what I do is I take 2 base plates from my, and this is the Stampin' Up! Machine, by the way. It's the Stampin' Up! Mini machine. And I take the 2 base plates, which is the gray and the white, and I smash them together the first round. And then I remove the white tray and bring in the smaller gray piece with a clear piece, put it on top of the darker gray piece, or platform, I should say, is what they're called, and then run it through again so it's a little bit more flatter. The first time that I run it through, it is okay. I've used that in the past as well, but when I realized that these larger canvas flares can be flattened even more, I started to flatten them a second time, running it through with the smaller or the thinner gray piece and the clear piece on top of the other gray platform. So that is how I flatten my flare. I know it was super quick, but it's super quick and easy. I just don't flatten all of my flare. I contemplated it at one point in time, and then I thought, no, I'm just going to keep it going, and flatten as I go, just in case I needed to show again how I flatten my flare. I've got several videos out there where I do actually flatten the flare, but I'm more zoomed out because of the fact that I'm only close in because I'm building all these clusters. All right, so once I get this piece, which I already envisioned where I was going to have my title piece, and I already envisioned where I was going to have this Adventure Ahead flare cluster. I've already knew where I was going to put these two pieces, but the other two I did not. I wasn't too worried, but here is where I wanted my flare, right next to that train. And I'm just making sure that the way that I have it set up and and angled and everything, that it still fit in the little nook of the photo. And then also too is I wanted the flare to be flat or to be straight across, and then everything else at an angle, if that makes sense. So the numbers on this little tag I wanted to be at an angle, while the Adventure Ahead section was straight across. So I was just using the photo as a reference, and then I cut a large, it's not really large, but I cut a fairly big cluster of mushrooms in half, and I'm used half on one side of the flare and the other half on the other. Now, arrows will also help tell you where your embellishments are going to go because they're directional, right? You clearly don't want an arrow pointing off of your page. You always want arrows pointing in towards either your subject matter or a cluster or into your page. Having them point off the page is kind of wonky, for one. But another thing too, I think the only inference that I would have an arrow pointing off the page is if it is one of those silly little spring, like a child bouncing on a trampoline, and you're trying to get that movement going, and you have all your arrows going and starting from the inside of the trampoline and then pointing outward. It would be the only reason. All right, so here we are 2 days later. Hi. And I decided that I'm going to matte this and give it a solid border. Plus, I really felt like it wasn't distressed enough. So once I matte it, I'm also going to distress the edges. I have to re-ink the edges. Because I already inked all, the whole thing, assuming this was going to be my base piece. But a lot happens in 3 days. I'm just saying. So here I'm using black soot. The first time I used hickory smoke. Now I'm using black soot to darken up these edges, give it a little bit more of a distressed look to it, to my faux fabric that I'm trying to make. And then I am going to adhere this down with tear and tape because it is warpy. It definitely has gotten wet, and then of course anything wet never dries flat again unless you heat press it with an iron. And then this is where I decided I want the edges distressed. Now sometimes I distress the edges and then I ink the raw edge. Sometimes I ink the edges and then I distress it. It just depends on the look that I am going for. I don't know who I'm talking to, but apparently I'm talking to somebody because I use my hands to talk. Yes, I do. Even right now, I am using my hands to talk, even though I'm not talking to anybody except a microphone. So, anywho, the distressing before or after and the inking before or after are just personal preferences. For me, this was supposed to look like a faux piece of fabric. So I did not mind inking the edges and then distressing and leaving it that way, because when you distress a piece of fabric and what is it called, raw edges, then you change the color of the fabric anyways once you start fraying the edges and whatnot. So yeah, I really do like how this looks. All right, so I've got these little extra pieces. Again, these are from a die cut, a manual die cut, and I only used two corners of it in the project that I originally had. So I have all of these little leftovers, and I'm super stoked that I'm able to use up these leftovers in different ways other than making them all look the same. Some of them got inked, some of them got painted, some of them, this one here is getting sanded. I just really do like the fact that I am able to use these in multiple different ways. Already, it's been 2 days. I forgot about my embellishments and where I wanted them, or I would have put them on the page first before putting my pictures down and then adding these little bits and pieces. And actually literally gluing them down. I would not have done any of that had I remembered that my clusters were pre-made. A lot happens in 2 days in my studio, just to let you know. So yes, I did not remember. Okay, here's where I was trying to go off of the sketch and put my title up at the top where I wanted my original cluster. It does not fit no more or anymore. I had to move everything and shift it all over. It just wasn't working the way that I had envisioned the initial clusters, right? Because again, it's been 2 days. I should have gathered all the clusters the way I wanted it, took a picture, and then that way I didn't have to remember it 2 days later. But I did not know I was not going to work on this layout for 2 days. Yes, paint splatter and acrylic paint takes forever to dry. I'm just letting you know that. Future reference. Learn from my mistakes. So I had to alter a few things. I had to bring the title down a little bit because I didn't like it floating in space, if I'm being honest. And even though I liked the cluster, the enjoy needed to be flipped around. If it probably would have worked a lot better if the arrow on the enjoy was flipped, or I probably, now that I'm thinking about it, I could have just cut the arrow off and left the word enjoy like it was on a wood plank. I did not think about that until like right now. But it's okay. I also have a couple leftover little bits and pieces from a previous layout. So my chevron border is going to get added, as well as these little leaves that I had sitting on my desk. Again, left over from a previous layout, but because this was all from a kit that I put together, and all things work together in a kit, right? These leaves were absolutely perfect. I like the little airiness that they brought in. I felt like it was a little dark going on my layout, and so these lighter green leaves definitely lended some help for sure. I did cut that leaf in thirds so I could use it in 3 different areas. That is one of the things I love about leaves, is I don't like to cover up the leaves. Like if I can, if I'm going to cover up a bunch of leaves, I'm going to cut it off and then see if I can't use those leaves somewhere else. Maybe not on the same page, but at least somewhere else. And this one here definitely added to all of my clusters, even though it was all one leaf. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do for this little layout, I had a lot of fun, by the way. The last thing I'm going to do for this layout is go ahead and add these little X's just for a little stitching purpose, nothing else. And that is it. I also forgot to mention, you guys, that this layout is also from or for the series that the Paper Snob does. She is the Paper Snob here on YouTube. Her name is Tara, and she does a series called Mix It Up Monday. And so she takes a sketch, and then you're just supposed to add some mixed media to it. It's really super simple and easy to do, and I completely forgot it in my intro, but I am bringing it in now because that's where the background came from. Yes, I wanted to play with ink because Messy Monday, acrylic ink is our product focus for Messy Monday, but then, of course, when it comes to Mix It Up Monday, I could have made background paper and then wove it in just like the sketch, but I liked the idea of making my own background and weaving my paints in and out. All right, you guys, so don't forget to check out all of the links that I have down below for Mix It Up Monday, Messy Monday, Christy's Beautiful Life, and the Counterfeit Kit. I have Facebook group links, I have YouTube links, I have playlist links, I have links, you guys. Again, thank you so much, and I will check you guys all later. Bye.